inflation numbers for the month of June. We've seen inflation go up a bit again, really, and there's a third consecutive time that we're seeing an uptick. And so we're asking whether we should be concerned, we should be worried. What exactly is happening? My guest this morning is John Che. He is a financial analyst and he joins me over the lines for this conversation today. John, good morning. How are you?
Good morning, Mr. Hammond. I'm doing well. How are you too?
I'm doing fantastic. Good to have you this morning.
Yes, great to also have you.
All right, fantastic. Let's get into our conversation today. Now, John, we all knew that, we all know the levels where inflation was just about a year ago, and the progress that we've made over the time. We've seen that our economy has been showing some signs of recovery, but we are now seeing inflation move upward again. That's the third time we're seeing an uptick. How should we interpret this development?
Yes, I think it's a very good question. I don't know. I think for the previous meetings that we have had this discussion, I think when inflation got to 3.2%, I think you asked a very important question whether it will go down more. And I made it clear that I'm not sure, I don't believe that it will go down more. And therefore, businesses, individuals, we're supposed to take advantage, especially as we're also seeing decline in interest rate. Now, what we are seeing now is that, what happened to producer price index? And on the year, if you compare the year, like the yearly movement, you realize that, inflation will continue to, rise going forward. Just that I think our major concern should not be the yearly, inflation rate. Most that is the headline inflation. But I think what we should be more concerned about is the monthly inflation movement. And I think if that is not really moving maybe very, very fast, like the way the yearly one is moving, then I think that will give us a little advantage to mean that, these inflationary figures are not something that we should be too worried. It should be more of maybe we trying to, see what is really driving that yearly inflation. And as I mentioned earlier, government finding ways to, come in. Because I think if you look at this inflation number, you realize that what is really moving this current inflation is more of the non-food inflation, the service sector, including transport, housing, rent. And it makes sense because, if you look at the current situation where fuel price was rising in June, I think June fuel price, rose sharply. But as far as we are seeing decline, you are seeing that pump prices have been falling over the last 2 weeks, 3 weeks. So what it suggests that, what is really driving the inflation is being subdued now. So there's no true cause to worry so much. And if you look even the monthly movement, it's just 0.2, which is even lower than the April-May movement. So it means that, we shouldn't be too worried, especially when what is driving the inflation now is, reducing, especially transport. Fuel prices falling, and which we expect it to reflect in the transport cost, and then maybe housing and the rest. I believe, it will go down, let's say, in this month.
I see. So is that to say that the three consecutive increases that we've seen is a change in direction? Really, is that a possible change in direction?
Yes. You see, one thing we need to appreciate is that for last year, I think I mentioned that when we were having discussion on PPI, last year we were very aggressive in trying to drive inflation down, and I think that is one thing that we have to remember. But you see, this year we are allowing the economy to take its course, and once we allow the economy to take its course naturally, these movements will occur. All right. The major issue is that is the policy response to these movements that matters. so that it doesn't go beyond board and make things worse than
Mm.
maybe previously. Okay, so I think, and my major worry is that you say as far as inflation starts going up, I mean, Bank of Ghana also starts to fight against it. And I mean, their objective of, I mean, reducing policy rates comes to a standstill. And that may be my major worry. As for Bank of Ghana, as far as, I mean, they see inflationary pressures, they'll respond. And once they are responding, that's going to affect monetary policy rate. So that's my worry. But if you look at, I mean, the whole general movement in the inflation, I don't think it's something that, and I think even the Ghana Statistician Service, I mean, the Ghana Statistician, he mentioned clearly that this is local problem, and the local problem is coming from the issue of, I mean, the local companies experiencing high PPIs,
Mm.
which is translating into higher consumer prices. So these things, I mean, maybe we can look at a way to support our local producers. Because see, if you look at the imported inflation,
Mm.
it's still around 2.3%, far, far below the 5.3. But look at the local one, it's around 6.3%. And that is, I mean, a cause to worry, because I mean, if local producers experiencing high inflation, that will really, I mean, affect how they compete with our importers. And so it's something that maybe, as we said earlier, government needs to step in to support our local producers in these times, and that will help us, I mean, subdue inflation in the medium and long term.
Mm. John, what actually makes the local producers experience that high number? I mean, or high inflation compared to the the imported one?
Yes, so the locally, I think what is happening is that one fuel, because the fuel price was rising, it was affecting their business significantly, and also service. I mean, employees also demanding more. So you see also the service, I mean, inflation also going up,
Mm.
and that was really affecting our local producers. Now, if you look at the import, I mean, imports, you realize that CD, I mean, is largely stable. I mean, we are not experiencing, you see, at first, the major issue was depreciation of the CD driving imported inflation. But you look at, I mean, recent times, realize that the CD is even appreciating. So those pressures have reduced significantly. Okay, keeping imported products, I mean, prices very stable. Do you
Mm.
get it? And as far as, I mean, as for imports, they're always looking for cheaper imports. So for them, they're always scanning through the market to see where they can import cheaply in order to, I mean, sell their products fast as a result of, I mean, depreciation fears and all that. So, and we understand from that point. Okay, but when it comes to local producers, as I mentioned, in June, fuel prices was rising very fast and was affecting the operations. Fuel is needed for almost everything.
Mm.
So as far as fuel price was rising, I think I mentioned earlier, fuel price rose to about 16, 17, which in May or April was far, far down. And that was increasing their cost. And that's why, I mean, I find it, a bit, how do I even call it? I mean, looking at now fuel price falling, I don't think those pressures will continue. And that's why I've always been recommending government stepping in to support our local producers. Because see, if local prices, I mean, local produced products
Mm.
prices are rising, that is going to affect the demand for it. And that's also going to affect their businesses. So sometimes when there are short, fluctuations, we need to come in, support them in order to, I mean, reduce the impact, because
Mm.
they are competing with importers.
Yeah.
And if importers are experiencing very low inflation and they're experiencing high inflation here, that affects their competitiveness. So
Mm.
some of these things you must step in to support. I mean, you can't just allow them to face that problem, which causes rise in our inflation, become a very great concern to everybody. Okay, so
Mm.
since some of these things, there should be some direct intervention. I mean, especially when we know that is not really a long-term thing. It's just some temporary shifts that is happening that is affecting, their prices. And that's why I've always been watching for producer pricing. That's once I'm also looking for what happens, the next one. Because if it increases again, then that means that we should also expect consumer price index increasing. And once it happens, that Bank of Ghana is likely to step in, and that will start increasing their monetary policy rate, and that will be, catastrophic, especially as far as the economy is concerned.
I see. So there's a pass through sort of thing. I mean, depending on what we see. But let's try to understand the numbers. Or just before that, you calling for support for the local producers. What does that mean?
Yes, yes. So you see, the issue is that, especially even in this, flooding situation happening, our local producers are facing serious problems with logistics, facing serious problems with transportation. In fact, if you even look at the inflation numbers in other regions, you realize that some regions are experiencing very high inflation, especially if you go to Northeast region, they're experiencing about 10.9%, far beyond the national average.
Average,
Okay,
yeah.
so clearly it's based on transportation problems in these times. Because because in these times where we have flood everywhere, roads are very bad and all that, our producers are really struggling. And you see, when these things are happening, our transport companies also increase their fares, because some places become very difficult to move, and you are likely to face a lot of challenges with your cars, and that increases transportation costs. So in these times, there's a need for maybe a national coordination program to help our farmers, our local producers, with easy movement of their goods and services around the country. If we don't support them in that manner, and we allow the supply demand forces to work, they are going to incur more transportation costs, more logistical problems, and they will pass that on to consumers. And you will see a very imbalanced inflation around the country. So this is the right time where maybe we need to, mobilize our national. I don't know if you have a great transport system nationally, but it's time for buffer company and all those companies to come in to support our local producers with easy transportation of their products around the country. And I've seen that that has been a major concern with our local producers, okay, especially in these times where flood is everywhere. There are some places, if you go to the Wasas, there are some places that some 2 days you can't even move your car around. The people are not able to move their products to places where they are supposed to sell, because the roads become immotorable. And in these times, you see, there will be high costs in relation to repairs, in relation to transport and all that. And this is the right time for government to step in, support them. I'm sure we have a very good cast maybe that can move in some of these areas to subdue inflation around the country.
I see. All right, John. Let's try to understand the numbers proper, and I think that it's very important we mention these numbers so that uh, anybody at all who's listening to us will get to understand exactly what we are saying. So now, producer inflation rose from 2.7% in April to 5.8% in May. And now
Yes.
consumer inflation has increased from 3.7% in May to 5.3% in June. What does that tell us about what is happening beneath the surface of the economy?
Yes. So I think what is really happening is that if you look at, last year and compared to this year, what we are seeing is that, price pressures have started. Building up. It's building up, even though it has not gotten beyond our plus or minus, 8, which we are still within the band bracket that is our objective. Okay, but the issue is that, if it continues this way, if it continues and it keeps increasing, That's where, I mean, policymakers will be very worried. Right now, the only good thing is that, you see, you don't just look at the yearly one, you also look at the monthly one. Because the monthly one will gives an idea whether indeed on the monthly basis prices are really rising, which we need to be too worried. As for the yearly one, as far as you are not too aggressive this year, I mean, you will see some uptick in that. The good thing is that if you look at all these numbers, you realize that for producer price index, the percentage, the monthly increase was not too much. I think it was very minimal. And the same thing with the consumer price index. It means that if you compare May to June, price just rose, I mean, by just 0.2% on the average, 0.2% on the average, which is even lower than the movement in May, because the April-May movement was 1.1%. But for May, June, it just rose by 0.2. So on the monthly, I mean, inflation, you realize that it is not really something we should be too concerned. It's just because, I mean, if you go back last year and compare to even 2024, you see that the movement was around 13.7%, and this year is just rising by just 5.3%. So it's not really, as I said, it is only when you see some serious movement on the monthly basis that to demand a lot of action. This is, I think the last time I explained that we should expect that on the yearly basis, inflation will be picking up like the way we are seeing it. Okay, on the monthly basis, yes, it will be happening. I'm sure even next month to rise a little. So on the yearly basis, we shouldn't be too worried. But when we see serious movement on the monthly basis, that is where, I mean, we have to be very, very worried about it and take action immediately. Okay, so I don't think we are. But you see, my problem is that if you go to the Treasury bill front, you realize that since March up to June, we are seeing about 200 basis points increase in the interest rate. So you see Treasury bill rate on the yearly one increasing by 2%. Yes. So when all these dynamics are happening, it tells you that, I mean, things are beginning to pick up again. Which if was as far as, I mean, Treasury bill rate goes up and inflation is also going up, then, I mean, you see the Ghana reference rate also going up, and then Bank of Ghana must take action. Then the monetary policy is also going up. So when those things start picking up, then you realize that, I mean, we are doing the reversal of all the gains that we have made. And that is why I'm calling for, I mean, serious direct intervention, especially when we are seeing that these current inflationary numbers are locally problems. They are local problems. They are not related to our the CD is not related to the external front. It's basically local problem, and which is partly due to, I mean, the rainy season making supply chain very difficult, and as a result, increasing costs in that area. And then, I mean, producers respond by passing that to consumers. So it is important that, I mean, government steps in to help in these times. Help our producers, help our retail markets to get their products to their destination very fast and at a low cost in all aspects. It's very important. If not, inflation picks up, everything is picking up. I mean, we will start going back to our previous, I mean, stages, which we don't want to. And because the Bank of Ghana has a direct objective. Lending rates must clearly come down to the single number to spur economic growth. If you don't get there, we will not really experience the growth that we expect. If you don't get to that single lending rate regime to make lending very cheap for consumers and for producers, I think we will not get to that point of that serious economic transformation that we are looking for. And if there are dangers that we are seeing, that, I mean, the yearly inflation is picking up, I mean, from 3.7 to go to 5.3, 2.7 to go to 5.8, it's something that we should be very worried and find ways to resolve it. And it is clear that problems are local. is not external. They are local
Mm.
problems.
So that.
And I understand because of, I mean, the weather patterns in these seasons, which affect a lot of things. So
Mm.
coming to support to bring these things down.
Mm. All right. So that means that this has got nothing to do. Is it nothing or maybe a little to do with the exchange rates movement?
No, as for exchange rate, there's nothing to blame exchange rate for.
Okay.
In June, for example, the exchange rate has been very stable, very, very stable. We have not experienced any significant movement in the exchange rate. So now we can't blame the external front. This one is serious local supply problems,
Mm.
which we need to resolve. And I understand. I mean, the raining season, always rain season behaves like this. Okay, because I mean, you see, when it's raining, I mean, if you have stayed in a village before, you realize that in these times it's very difficult to even get cars to transport your products. And producers, local producers also struggle. I mean, getting their produce. Look at Kaswa Road and all that. See if you are a manufacturing company there, how do you get your products safely to the urban areas to sell? So these are, I mean, dangers. And that is why I said there should be a system to support in this regard to reduce, I mean, the problems that local producers are facing with supply chain issues around the country.
Mm. Right. Okay, John. So I mean, essentially, would you say that the economic recovery that we are beginning to see, or we were experiencing, or we are experiencing, is now facing its first, major test?
Yes, yes, yes. And it's really under threat. It's really under threat. You
Mm.
get it? And we experienced downward movement in inflation for continuously for 12 months. You get it? From January 2025 to December 2025, every day that inflation was reported, we were going down. And
Mm.
that gave Bank of Ghana the all the tools to also bring lending rate down to make the economy, I mean, grow. But what we are seeing in 2026 is that there's, reversal in these trends, and we are seeing inflation picking up again. Anytime inflation is picking up, there's a lot of fears at the policy side.
Mm.
Okay, and you see, their, I mean, their objective to intervene or in hurry to intervene, it could lead to miscalculation of certain things, and that will even make the whole economy, I mean, pose a lot of challenges to the economy. So it is important that at this moment, whatever is driving the current inflation is clear. Thankfully, it's not, foreign or external shocks. And that is,
Mm.
well, most if it's external shock, it's difficult to control. By God's grace, I mean, the war between US, Israel, and Iran are nearly coming to an end. And we are seeing fuel prices falling. So we can't blame it on that. Exchange rate is relatively stable. We can't blame it on that. Geopolitics, I mean, under serious, how do you call it? I mean, we are not seeing a lot of geopolitical crisis around. And
Mm.
what is happening currently, unlike if you go back to March, April, clearly the problem was coming from external front. So there was
Right.
little Bank of Ghana could do. To the extent that Bank of Ghana made it clear that, I mean, let's pray that the war stops because there's nothing we can do. And it was clear that there was nothing they could do, right? Because there was an external problem which was affecting every country in the world. US even experienced inflation in those times.
Mm.
But now the inflation we're experiencing in May and June is not on the external front, it's local front. And once it's a local front, we have total control over it. And that is why I said once we have total control over it, it is important to put up, I mean, great measures to support our producers. And
Mm.
I think even if you look at what was driving this inflation, it's basically transport. I think the statistician mentioned that it's basically transport. And
Mm.
that's why I've explained that, I mean, these times there are a lot of transportational problems around. And that's why some regions are experiencing very high inflation, but there are some regions that have very bad roads, which is very difficult to get the products to their destination. And because of that, I mean, they add those costs to the consumer prices. So this is a time that I mean I'm sure we have I mean I don't know I don't know if you are aware or I don't know if we have a national transport system in terms of these supply chains to support in that regard. But if
I
you don't,
I don't
I
think
think
so.
it's something that the transport minister must think through to say no that in these times there are places that is difficult for I mean cars, normal cars to move.
So
Even if the
right.
normal cars are moving, they will significantly charge high prices. So let's intervene and get, I mean, help our producers to deliver their products around the country.
I see. All right. John, please hold on for me. Let me just announce the lines if anybody wants to join the conversation. Well, if you just tune in, this is Business Breakfast on Z101.9 FM with me, Nitrebi Hammond. And this morning, we're talking about inflation numbers for the month of June and what exactly is happening. My guest is John Che. He is a financial analyst and he's helping us make sense of the numbers. You're free to join a conversation. If you want to send us a WhatsApp, feel free to do that. You can drop a comment, your comments, your questions on our WhatsApp number 0544 321019. 0544 321019. I'm happy to read your messages for you this morning. Also, you can drop a comment under our live stream. We're on Facebook at ZFMGH and on YouTube at Z Multimedia. Please feel free to drop a comment there, and I'm happy to read them for you. And if there are questions, John will respond to them. All right, so that is that. John, let's continue the conversation now. Um, what does this rising inflation mean for businesses who are operating in Ghana, especially SMEs?
Yes, yes. So, as I mean, even if you look at the number, you realize that it's SMEs who are really struggling with, I mean, this high inflation. Because, I mean, once there's this inflation and it's locally produced, what it means is that they will have to also adjust their prices. And if they are adjusting their prices, I mean, that is also going to affect the demand. Okay, especially when consumers are also not experiencing high increase in their wages in correspondence with the consumer price index. So, you see, the one major problem facing SMEs is the issue of, I mean, credit, right? And inflation largely affects GRR because if you look at the way we calculate the Ghana reference rate, inflation play a major part. And so whatever inflation is goes into the GRR, and what it means is that there's likely to be an uptick in GRR. I mean, the Ghana reference rate, the base lending rate that banks are supposed to use, apart from the risks that the SME or the individual possess. So what it means is that, I mean, they are going to see a small jump in normal lending rate, which will affect their operational costs. It's not good for, I mean, our small businesses that are trying to thrive in these times. And not just the lending rate that is going to affect them, they're also facing issues about logistical problem, transportation problem. There are people when they go and buy products in bulk, transporting to their shops or their retail outlets very difficult because of the current issues. They are also seeing increase in transport costs and all that. Okay, so it's something that we all need to be worried, and this is the right time. I mean, we have some things that we have set up to support us and that there's the time to maybe by giving interest for SMEs to thrive in these times.
Sorry, John, we lost you for a
I
few
mean, in
seconds.
terms of
By giving what? Hello?
hear me now.
Yes, but the line is breaking. I'm sure it's a network. You were saying something. You said by giving something to SMEs.
Yes, so I was saying that inflation is picking up, that will affect lending rates. So it seems that if SMEs even go to banks for loan, they are going to see a slight increase in that lending rate. So this is the right time. You know, we have some institutions we have set up to support. You have heard of Maslow, right?
Yeah, Maslow.
Maslow
Yeah.
is there to support SMEs. Yes. So in these times that, I mean, there's likelihood to be increase in borrowing costs, it's the right time for them to support these SMEs by I mean, interest-free loans, because I mean the flooding issue is also even affecting.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry.
Oh, that's okay,
See,
John.
the flooding issue is affecting these SMEs. It's affecting their businesses. So we need to find a way to support it. You know, there are some SMEs that have lost, in fact, all the things in their shops. I don't know if you have heard of
Yes,
it,
as a result
Tema.
of the rain. Yeah.
Yes, and yes, so that's why I said, and these guys affected by the flood, they have loans to pay, and these are the SMEs. We see them as engine of growth for our economy. So this is a time to partner with them to restock, to build back their businesses, giving them interest-free loans to support them. I mean, because I mean they have lost so much, and so
Mm,
to I mean do business as usual. We need to
right.
support them. Important we do that. It's very important we do that.
Mm. All right.
Come back to their.
Okay. John, are you still with me?
Yes,
Okay.
I'm
All
here.
right. Great. Yeah. So the other time when we spoke about the producer inflation, I think one of the questions I was asking was whether, I mean, consumers are going to begin to see price increases anytime soon. The same question still stands. Should we expect anything like that?
Yes, I think we are already experiencing it.
Mm.
See, one index goes up.
Hello.
Once consumer price index goes up, it means that we are already experiencing increase in prices of products.
Mm.
The good thing is that you see this number is the average. So there are some products that price are going down. There are some products that price are going up. And I think I always say that when these things happen, just check the products that are experiencing high inflation. Avoid them for the meantime. You can avoid them for the meantime and switch to the products that price are falling just for the meantime and to survive, right? So, for example, you see maize falling by over 32% in that same year period. You see what's the contumely also falling, and some of these products, I mean, are good for our health, right? So maybe there's a time to shift to those products and then eat them for now, and avoid the ones that you are seeing serious increase in their prices. Things like ginger, things like shrimps. You can decide to forgo shrimps for now
Mm.
because those places are experiencing high inflation. So this is where, as a consumer, you find a way to balance what you eat in order to reduce, I mean, this inflation on your budget. Is very important.
Mm.
Then maybe next month. So you can be monitoring the areas that are experiencing low inflation and begin to enjoy them more for now. Just to reduce the pressure on your disposable income. We
Right.
can go that route.
Mm.
And
I
I
think
think it will help us.
I think you've already come to the households because I was actually coming there to ask what this inflation trend means to them or would mean to them practically. But I think that you're speaking about it, or you'd want to
Yes.
add some few things.
Yes, and I want to add, I think the transportation costs. I mean, we are seeing a decline in S-pump prices,
Mm.
and I'm hoping it will reflect in transportation costs. I'm not really seeing our transport companies responding to that. I've
But
not
but
seen
but
it
but the,
yet.
John, but the transport companies have done us a lot of good already, Anna.
Yes, they have. I think when fuel prices rose even significantly to around
Yes,
18, 17, they still maintain
maintain
their
there
prices.
exactly.
Yes. So I think on that front they have done really well, and that's why I'm wondering whether as we are experiencing decline again. I mean, because the fuel prices are declining again. I mean, if you look at the floor price, it has. So I don't know, maybe because they didn't respond when price was rising, maybe they will also not respond in these times.
Mm.
But I think the transport cost was not really at the retail side. I'm sure it's the long distances and then the cargoes and those people that increase their transportation costs. Because I remember, I mean, some places you go, when you even take trotro, you still pay the same thing.
Yeah.
So I'm sure maybe those places, I mean, the buses, the long journeys, and then the cargo cars and all that, maybe they can look at reducing the price a bit for us, their transport costs a bit for us, so that it can reflect in the product pricing. So maybe let's hope that, I mean, they will respond favorable to this current movement, so
Mm.
that we all enjoy the benefit.
All right. Anyway, but still on households, should people begin to adjust their budgeting strategies in any way?
Oh yes, yes. I think I've mentioned it earlier that, I mean, this is the time to adjust your budget. And I was even mentioning that, I mean, looking at the food inflation, realize that there are some foods that is really experiencing, I mean, reducing inflation. I mean, if you look at maize declined, contomere declined. There are some good products, good food products that saw a decline in inflation. So we can switch to those products for now. Because if you are seeing some products increasing by, let's say, 40%, 50%, you have to avoid them, especially if they are not really essential commodities, which you
Mm.
can't do away with. So you just budget. I mean, whatever you eat for the month, you can look at it and arrange and just choose the ones that prices have fallen and enjoy them for now. So every month you are looking at the ones experiencing decline in prices, and you target those products to, I mean, consume. That will reduce the pressure on your disposable income and still keep your budget in line with your with what you need to eat to survive. It's very important to do that. Okay. And in relation to service, I mean, in terms of, if you look at the other areas, I mean, education also saw increase in inflation. As for education, I mean, people have choices in terms of whether to go to public, because public education is, I mean, free, right? But people also want more for their kids, so they choose private institutions. Maybe it is a time to engage. We have PTAs in school to engage and explain to our heads that, I mean, they need to consider increasing the tuition fees for now, because, I mean, things are not all that good, especially
Mm.
the flooding issues and all that. So, I mean, there should be more, I mean, engagement with some service providers to at least reduce their costs. I
Right.
understand them. They also have employees demanding higher wages. So sometimes the fight is multi-dimensional in all areas. That makes it very difficult to tackle.
Mm-hmm.
But I think just looking at inflation numbers and just seeing 0.2% increase is something that we shouldn't be too worried about.
Mm. I see. All right, John. Now let's move on to monetary policy and government response. I know you've mentioned that a while
Yes.
ago, but what options does the Bank of Ghana have when inflation starts rising again?
Yes, so mostly, as for the Bank of Ghana, their major policy direction is to control inflation.
Mm.
And once they are seeing, I mean, increase in inflation, what they normally do is to respond by increasing monetary policy rate, especially when they face a demand side. But I don't think this inflation is a demand side inflation. This inflation is supply side inflation. And for supply side, when I say supply side inflation, what I'm trying to say is that it's not really coming from people demanding more because they have a lot of money. It's coming from suppliers facing some challenges, and because of that, increasing their prices. When that happens, you don't respond by, increasing the monetary policy rate. So I think they should still, the worst case scenario, I mean, they are sitting, and very soon they are coming to announce the monetary policy rate decision. But
Mm.
I think looking at the monthly increase, looking at inflation still below the plus or minus 2 of 8%, I think they shouldn't attach monetary policy rate. They shouldn't increase it. The worst case, they should maintain it, because it's important that, I mean, we try to find way to reduce the rate in order to, I mean, spare economic growth. but maybe because of the current pressures, it's better for us to maintain the monetary policy rate and continue to monitor development going forward. Once we do that, I mean, still you see lending rate still within, I mean, a rate that is a bit affordable. But you should expect an increase in the GR a bit. The GR will go up a bit, no matter what monetary policy decision is made by Bank of Ghana. It will still go high a bit because, I mean, inflation has gone up, Treasury bill has gone up. These two increases the GR, the Ghana reference rate. And so monetary policy shouldn't come in again to also increase it. At least the movement should be based on inflation and the Treasury bill for now. So I'm hoping that, I mean, Bank of Ghana maintains the inflation rate.
I see. Now, but what are the risks of tightening the monetary policy too quickly? Hello, John.
Yeah. So yes. So you see, the risks of tightening the monetary policy rate is that is going to increase your lending rate. So you see, as far as, I mean, Bank of Ghana decides that we are going to increase monetary policy rate, that means that the banks will respond, and then GR will also increase. Once GR increases, lending rates will also increase. And that's what I don't want us to see now. Okay, because we have not really reaped all the benefits from the great numbers we have achieved last year. And I think the governor made it clear that he has a goal of bringing the interest rate to a single digit. And that objective must still be pursued no matter the pressures. And that's why I'm saying that even if we are seeing current pressure, the current pressure is still below the plus or minus 2 of their 8% target. So it means that the current 5.3 is still below the 6% target that they have set, the least 6% target that they have set. So we are still within our objective. That shouldn't cause them to adjust the monetary policy rate for now. And that's what I'm trying to say, that they should either keep it the way it is. Because sometimes these pressures, you don't know how it will come again this month. So in order to, and you know, the Israel, US, and the Iran war is very fragile. Anything can spark it up, and fuel price can adjust again. And so it's better we maintain the monetary policy rate for now and continue to watch the markets, what it does, look at the July numbers to see whether inflation pressures will still be building, and then we'll maybe give it about 3 months and see before we try to tighten.
Okay.
But now it's not good to tighten the monetary policy rate.
All right, John. Should government be worried that inflation could, undermine the progress made in stabilizing the economy?
Yes, they should. They should be very worried. And you see, the thing is that the treasury bill side is also picking. So the fiscal side is also picking up in terms of the rate. Now, we were experiencing declining treasury bill. Everybody was happy. Now, because anytime we issue treasury bill, it's highly undersubscribed, you are seeing the fiscal side also adjusting to attract more people to buy treasury bill. And so it's something that, I mean, governments must also be a bit concerned, especially in relation to what is currently happening. Inflation is picking up, treasury bill rate is picking up, so that means that, I mean, there's likelihood that lending rates will also adjust upwards. And if it starts behaving that way, and you see, the problem is that the issue happening currently is not really demand side. So it doesn't mean a lot of people, doesn't mean that a lot of people have money, like a lot of people have money and they are buying and the products are not available. That is not really the case. So normally when it happens that way, it's a bit difficult to control. And that's where, if that is the case, then you have to help the producers directly. You have to help producers directly. If things are happening this way and it's supply side issues, you have to help suppliers directly. And when you help them directly, it's able to reduce any cost push inflation they are experiencing. And that will, I mean, help subdue inflation. If you don't help in that regard, it's become worse. Do you get it? It will become worse, because the point is, once supply suppliers are facing increasing, farm gate prices and all that, clearly they will start adjusting. Though now you can't really do anything about it. Because if I'm producing something, caring about maybe 10% increment, I'll have to pass it to the consumer to survive. And so, especially if it's coming from the supply side, we don't really use monetary policy to resolve it. In fact, what you even have to do is that at the monetary policy side, you should even find a way to reduce the interest rate for them. So you can't fight it by tightening the monetary policy. So and therefore, as far as you are seeing that the problems are the supply issues, get um, try and help the producers
Right.
in those cost push factors to overcome those challenges, and they will lower their prices and things will stabilize again.
All right, John. So based on the current trends, what is your outlook for inflation over the rest of this year?
Yes, so I think looking at what is happening and the aggressive way we addressed things last year, I'm expecting inflation to continually pick up, but it won't go beyond 8% this year. It won't go beyond 8%. The highest that will go will be around 8%. Okay. I'm very sure that government is watching, and I think the current finance minister is very proactive. So once he's seeing some of these dynamics, the central bank too is very proactive. So once they're seeing these dynamics, I'm very sure that they will intervene to bring the inflation down. So for the whole year, if you look at the projections, I think even the finance minister projected that the highest inflation for the year will be around 6%. That is his target. There are some international bodies that have projected, 10% and the rest. But I'm very sure we won't go beyond 8% this year. We'll still hover around the 4 to 7 for the whole year. And so that we can achieve our long-term objective.
So, but what factors could push it higher?
Yes, so I think one major factor is the external. Let's hope that the war in Iran, Israel, and US will come to an end, because the fuel price is everything, right? So once there's that geopolitical tensions that will seriously undermine our efforts, and most often fuel price is the major contributor of our inflation, because it affects almost everything. So if you are not really going to see, and one thing I trust is that the US is going to have their midterm election, and Donald Trump, the US president, is pushing to bring oil price down to win that election. So I think from now to November, where they'll have their midterm election, I don't think there will be a serious geopolitical tensions, because they have to do what they need to do to win the election. So on that front, we are okay. If you look at depreciation of the cedi, which is also a major factor in relation to inflation in this country, I think now Bank of Ghana has enough international reserves to fight it. And I think Bank of Ghana is being very aggressive in relation to how forex participants and banks try to manipulate the exchange rate. So they have a lot of policies, and I think nowadays they are far ahead of all those people that tries to manipulate our exchange rate. And I've seen that sometimes they will intentionally pump dollars that they know that the people will not need, to make it, to send a very good signal to the market that they have a lot of dollars to intervene anytime they want. And that is also making it scary for those people who speculate not to, have their way. And also the forest participants also not to have their way. So I'm sure the exchange rates will largely be stable for the whole part of the year. And once, these two factors, fuel price and then the cedi stability, is going to be ensured, I'm not sure, things will turn, except maybe there's a disaster which will happen, and everywhere is affected, and most businesses are affected, and as a result, serious supply chain challenges emerge. If all these factors, we pray, will not happen, It's not going to happen. I mean, we are also a prayerful country. I don't think God will allow God will allow that to happen to us. So, in these, I mean, developments, I'm
Mm,
very hopeful that
right.
I mean things will be more stable in this year.
Mm. All right, John, thank you very much. Now, if maybe finally, if you had to, give one piece of advice to businesses, to investors, and maybe ordinary households as we navigate this new inflation environment, what would it be?
Yes, I think I'll go to businesses. I mean, because as for households, I think we have advised them in relation to strategizing their food consumption to go for the low inflation, inflated, I mean, products. But I mean, for businesses, I think this one, we won it, I mean, in March or something. So when inflation got to 3.2 and GRR were going down, I think you remember we advised that this is the right time to take advantage of loan opportunity to expand their businesses. And you see that inflation is picking up. If you have not done that, I mean, the inflation is still around 5.3. So it's still below, I mean, our bracket, which will still keep Bank of Ghana, which will still let Bank of Ghana keep their monetary policy rate. So if you have not really taken advantage of that first advice and you want to expand your business, you want to, this is the right time to, I mean,
Mm,
engage your bank for loans. You shouldn't get to a point where inflation picks up again and then the rate goes back to 15%, 16%, and now you become too worried and now want to chase banks for loans. Even for the last 2, 3 months, people have been getting loans at 12%, 13%, even the individual level, not businesses. Individual level, they are
mm,
getting loans at 12, 13. But inflation is picking up, treasury rate is picking up. So they are going to adjust these lending rates. But I mean, this is the right time. Maybe they have not started, I've not seen it happening. Maybe they are waiting for the monetary policy to come with their decision before they take any step. So this is the right time. If you want to expand your business, if you want money to finance your working capital or whatever, this is the right time to take that great step, to take the opportunity to do so. All right. Otherwise, if you wait, by the time you realize all these numbers are going up and interest rates will go up again. Okay.
mm.
So, I mean, businesses must take advantage. I'm sure if some of them have taken our advice. I'm sure some of them did. I mean, they got loans at a cheaper rate.
Mm.
If it's still not too late, let's do that again and expand our businesses.
All right. All right, John. Thank you very much for your time this morning. Thanks so much for sharing your insights with us as well. We're really grateful.
Thank you, Mr. Hammond. I really appreciate the
All right.
opportunity.
All right.
Thank you for your listening.
Thank you too. Please do enjoy the rest of your day. So that was John Che. He is a financial analyst, and he joined us this morning. We've been talking about the inflation for the month of June and what we need to be doing. We try to understand exactly the numbers, and if you miss any part of the conversation, you feel free to head to our YouTube channel. We're going to post a video there, and you can play back. If you're a business owner, you're an investor, you are maybe just an ordinary Ghanaian, anybody at all, feel free to visit our social media platforms. So we've had a very good conversation. You can get to play back and make sense of all the things that we're speaking about. But that's how we wrap up today on the Business Breakfast on Z101.9 FM. Up next is the brighter side. And we're back again tomorrow for some more interesting conversations. Until then, please keep listening to Z101.9 FM. My name is Anitra Bihamon. I'll see you tomorrow. When you think Ghana, think Z.